It is good to be back. What I missed the most, I think, how's that? Is it making noise? Yeah. One of the things I miss the most around here is what I call the patio party on Sunday. Just the gathering of people moving past and through and tugs here and there, asking for prayers for something or other, catching up a little bit on some of the intimate parts of your life, the suffering parts, and just having fun. And it is a delight. Oh my gosh, these faces mean the world to me. And what did I say? And I'm not going to think about it one more second or I'll start crying. But you are beautiful. I hope you know how beautiful you are. Can you guys all hear this okay? Are you okay? If you don't, make me say it over again. I am standing up here at his birthday a couple weeks ago. Is that supposed to do that? No. Well, we can make it do that. Just had a birthday, so I am definitely the youngest I'll ever be and the oldest I've ever been. And that's why this topic is so timely. That's what it is. Let me take my collar off. God's not used to me wearing this. You all know Julie Shoei? She's amazing.
Since I have a mic, there are some extra mugs over there on the side. If y'all couldn't make the gala, please take them because he couldn't love you anymore.
And also some of the choir wants to come down, so I hope there's seats for them or somewhere they can stand. Yeah, hello. Perfect. Thank you, Julie. She's priceless. So thanks for coming. Thank you for joining us tonight. I could not say thank you too much because I'm feeling so much of it. You show an uncommon courage to choose to be part of an evening like this that's focusing on pain, on aging, and death. So it takes an uncommon courage to want to learn more about this and to poke at this in our own lives for what it might be full of for us. It is some hard stuff. And I hope that in some ways I challenge you and make you a little bit mad. And I hope in some ways I bring you comfort tonight out of the teachings, the wisdom of our Catholic Christian tradition. But I suspect it's going to shake some things up for you. And I suspect, and I ask you not to be afraid of that, notice it happening in your body. This really tonight is about the body. It really is about the body. What we feel, where we feel resistance in our body, about our body getting older, our body suffering pain, and our body dying. Remember, you are dust, and to dust you will return. And one of the things I really appreciate about our Catholic tradition is that the church will not let us not look at death. And the culture tends to run from it full speed ahead into a lot of stuff. And we'll be talking about some of those ways of escaping looking at death. But you are following our tradition well when you realize that on places like Ash Wednesday, All Saints, the one about the dead, All Souls, thank you. Because of one of my symptoms of aging, this is why I write my homilies out, because I'd be up there another hour trying to find the right word for what I want to say. But once you kids are notorious for raising their hand and telling me what I wanted to say. So thank you for being here, and I do think it's timely with Ash Wednesday coming up just this next Wednesday. Even the words around death sometimes are tricky, and I can't get over in my 74 years how quickly we moved away from the word death to passing. He passed, my mom passed, my friend passed, instead of she died. And I'm not saying that's totally wrong, because passage is everything we believe that death is about. So I'm not condemning it, but I think it ruffles more feathers to just say my mom died sometimes than to say he or she passed. But I hope I can be with you in some of your questions tonight. I don't want to come here tonight with my agenda. I do want to be here with you with some of the questions that are bothering you the most. And I have to say, and the reason I went with this topic tonight, besides I'm aging and getting ready to die, don't moan. I mean, it's supposed to happen, right? But it's to be here with you guys in this is really an honor because it's a very, very tricky thing to talk about, a very difficult topic. The warning is that there will be moments that will be unsettling to you, and it might challenge some of your preconceived notions. You know, I hope, from my time with you, that I really respect you and respect you a lot, which means I'm not going to spoon feed you answers that will console you only. I'm going to call a spade a spade. You are welcome to challenge anything I say, and you are welcome to ask me more about it afterwards if it leaves you too ruffled or unsettled. But you're ready for a mature faith. I say that firsthand. You are ready for your faith and what happens around the mystery of death to be maturer than maybe it's been up until now. I'm not saying your childhood notions of heaven and hell and purgatory and all those things that come with it, the experience, are even of aging. You're mature enough to handle not the childish answers that carried you for so long. And I want you to be equipped to answer your college kids' questions and even your third graders' questions when they come to you, age appropriate, of course. But I just want it to be something that you can feel maturing. Like I want you to feel like tonight you're maturing some in your notions around these notions of aging, physical pain, and that's why it's about the body. Physical pain and aging and death are body experiences. Again, they all have a component. Our soul and our body is totally connected, all the time connected, never not connected, unless we disconnect them. And hopefully that's not going to happen tonight. And I hope that makes sense. I will not go, I owe that to you. I will not myself go to hell to keep you from hell. Ever. And like I said, anxiety is running amok in this world, especially in the culture of all the students upstairs. It's a national and a generational issue right now. The issue of anxiety is everywhere. And the more we avoid tough conversations about these things, the more debilitating those anxieties will become for us, and we will suffer more than we have to. There's only one way through our fears, even our panic, and I can't even tell you the number of students over my years here who were in an actual panic attack, thinking about their death and thinking about death of their whole person, or even their consciousness, like if there might not be anything afterwards. This is panic I see in people's eyes, and maybe the reason there's so many of you here tonight is because you carry, I think we all have anxiety about this. I think we'd be an idiot not to, because it is the greatest uncertainty of all of our doctrines of faith. The most unprovable, the most uncertain. And so to live in uncertainty takes a lot of courage. And it's going to, what we'll come back to again and again, it takes a lot of trust. That's the mark of a mature faith. Not that you have your ready-made answers up here about what dying's going to be about, what heaven's going to be about, anything about what these things are about. What makes a mature faith mature is that you can hold the both ends of issues like this and come up with an imagination, your own imagination, but imagination, I hope, formed and fashioned by the Universal Church in 2,000 years of tradition. So this nation is full of debilitating anxieties. And the only way through those fears, even panic, is letting ourselves feel them first. We have to let ourselves feel. If you notice anxiety coming up to you tonight, stay with it. Breathe into it. Hold it. Hold it gently, really tenderly, with compassion for yourself. You don't have to make it go away by answers that are something you would tell a 7th grader about Christmas that you wouldn't tell a 70-year-old about Christmas. You and I are old together. So the question I have first is, what are your questions? What questions did you bring with you tonight? And the first one I'm going to give you under that. So the question is, what are your questions? And then the next question is, Call to mind the worst pain in your body you ever suffered. I'm going to pause right there for a second. What is the worst pain? And you don't have to say it out loud right now, but I want you to be aware of it. What is the worst pain in your skin, in your flesh, in your bones that you've ever suffered? And then take a second to imagine, with that same question, imagine yourself suffering that pain. You were there for it. Where do you see yourself suffering it? The next question is, what do you hate the most about aging? What bothers you the most about aging? You are aging, you know. What do you dislike the most about aging? Just come up with your own answer. When you think about death, your own, what is it you fear the most? When you think about your own death, what do you fear the most? And if you can, make a space for that fear, please do, for a second. And lastly, do you imagine life beyond the death of your body? What do you imagine heaven will be like? Can you let yourself imagine life beyond the death of your body? What do you imagine it will be like? So is anybody willing to raise their hand and tell us, what are your questions tonight? Those questions were to get you in touch with what tonight is about. It's a bigger topic than we could ever begin to poke at. It's all a mystery. Remember, there's no certainties, there's no sureties, there's only trust. Trust can feel easy some days, and trust can feel really hard another day. I told you in several homilies over the last 33 years that I give my trust a number every morning between 1 and 10. And it's about the existence of God, and it's about these life and death issues. And I give myself a number that says, 10 says my trust, for example, in God, God's alive in the world is a 10, and it can be a 1, which means it's just a decision to trust. There's no consolations. A 10 says there's a lot of consolations. It makes it easy to say that. We're all on that spectrum. There's not a priest or a pope that knows for certain there's life after death, that could prove it, ever. They too are called to trust. Pope Francis right now is having to trust a lot, but it's pure trust. In some ways, he doesn't know any more than you and I do. In other ways, he does. I hope. But if you press a pope, a bishop, a priest, anybody, even the holiest person you met, you know, do you believe in God? Is it an easy trust or it's a hard one? They would have to come up with a number because it's only trust. Faith is faith. The synonym for faith is trust. What do you trust to be true? I can indicate why it's easy for me to trust now. I can help you find things in your life that maybe could be footprints to eternity. But I can't prove it. I can't make you decide that. That's the proof. It's not. It's just indications, it's touching into things, desires. All those things make it easier or harder to trust on any given day. So what are your questions? What questions would you like to talk about tonight, if you could? Please.
This is more a question to the group. My worst fear is dying without my family, because I travel so much, and usually with friends and whatnot, but that's not my family. And does anyone have worry about, I made sure all my siblings were around my mother, all my siblings were around my father. They all live out of state. I don't know who's going to be here. We even just sold Florida, so I can be closer to Lauren, so she'll be here. But anyway.
No, it's beautiful thought, beautiful sentiment. Anybody else share that fear? Raise your hand if you have a fear of dying without the people you love around you. It is a powerful desire, very powerful desire, and warrants some attention. So I think we need to build a life, if we can, you and I, ready for that or not that. You know, when it comes time to die, we don't know if anybody's going to be there. Like you said, who knows who's going to be around at that point. So we need to build a life that's ready for both possibilities. How can you be ready to die alone? Because it could happen. And how could you be ready to die with somebody there? I can tell you for myself, I'm a raging extrovert. I think you don't, I love people. But can I tell you frankly, and this is a little different from you, I don't want anybody in the room when I die. And do you know why? I don't want anybody distracting me from where I need to be looking when I cross that threshold. And I mean that sincerely. I'm so extroverted, I'll be distracted by people saying things, and Martha might not know Bobby, and I gotta introduce these two, and I gotta make sure they're getting along. I'm dying, for God's sake. I wanna just be looking at the light. I just wanna go for the light. And we can trust enough that those people are there, because there's no distance. There's no distance from love. I mean, wherever you die, wherever I die, the love with which we have been loved and the love with which we have loved others, have been loved and loved others, that love will be there. There's no distance in love. When I think of you, when I'm praying for you, so many of you have asked me recently even to pray for people you love who are really in the throes of very distressing situations. And when I pray for them, I imagine them, I imagine their face, if I know their face, and they're there. They're right there with me, right then. There's no away when it comes to love. And that's a really consoling thought to me. And so even though I'd like to die alone, I'd like to be able to just focus and do the work I need to do with that last breath, I in the end, will have those people in my heart, but not necessarily with my body. That's just my peculiarity. I'm not saying that's an ideal of any sort, and it might be really scary for some people to think like that, but it's a way of thinking about these kinds of things. Thank you. Thank you for the question, the thought. Anybody else have a question you'd like us to address tonight? Please.
Hey, I listen to a lot of Catholic radio, and a lot of these commenters are talking about final perseverance. And my biggest fear is dying without extreme throughout the last race.
It's Sacrament of the Sick now.
Because it makes me think from all these things I listen to on media, that you might be going along just great for most of your life, and then at the end you might get attacked by the Noah, and who knows what choices you're going to make, and I think these guys here.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's very vulnerable. The fears around those last moments and whether we're worthy are worthy is not even a correct word when it comes to God's love, because nobody's worthy of God's love. And that's the stuff. So the work you and I need to do now, if we're plagued by the thought of, am I capable of heaven at this point? I mean, did I screw up my life so bad? Are there things haunting me from the past that are going to catch up with me at the last judgment as we talk about it? It's a really huge question, and the fear is so real. And that's where a spiritual director or a confessor can help calm that down. It doesn't have to be at the last minute. It doesn't have to be the sacrament of the sick, or what we used to call extreme unction. It really comes down to just an amazing act of trust that you did good enough. And I would put it this way. At that moment, and we got to practice this to get there. You can't just pull these things out of the hat at the end. We got to practice right now what it means to throw yourself on the mercy of God. Right now, if you could throw yourself on the mercy of God, even say it verbally to God, alone in your, not right here in this group, please. But if you can throw yourself on the mercy of God, that mercy is everything. And there's nothing you have to worry about. That's a last issue of probably, if I was doing that, that'd be my control issues coming out at the end. That I need to control to make sure I'm okay to do this now. But we've been tempted by that a million times over the years of our life, especially we who are in our 70s and 80s. There's so many times we didn't feel worthy of love and had to learn how to accept it. There's so many times we've been being redeemed, and being redeemed again and again. And we just have to throw ourselves on the mercy of God. I don't know any better way to say it. If you throw yourself on the mercy of God the best you can now, you will find it possible and not to be afraid that you won't be able to do it at the end. So now, every time, if you're a church-going person right now, every time you go to Mass, throw yourself on the mercy of God. God, I don't know if I'm worthy to receive you in my heart. I don't know. I've screwed up big time. Everybody here screwed up big time. I can throw myself on your mercy and receive you. Totally, wholly receive you because of the boundless mercy that's available. So start now. If there's any creepy stuff from your adolescent years or all the way to now, anything you're totally ashamed of, you couldn't even tell the priest in confession for some reason, if that's in there anywhere, just when you go home tonight, just throw yourself on the mercy of God. Just say, I just trust your mercy. This is not a love I could deserve, but thanks to God, it's not a love I have to deserve. That's a mature faith. Right there with you. But it's hard. I mean, we want that last reassurance, but there's no guarantees the priest is not going to be on vacation somewhere. Would that be me? Yeah, if your salvation depends on the priest being there for the last sacraments, you're hosed. There's not enough priests left in the world for that to be true. Any other questions you want to get out there? Please, Jill.
Along those lines, ways I could prepare, be ready, get ready, think, feel death. That it's not this huge thing looming ahead, but it's part and parcel of my life cycle.
Yes, that is a really great question. Thank you for that. Yes, there are ways to get ready, and hopefully we'll touch into those tonight. But one is what you do next Wednesday when they spray ashes on your forehead and say, you're dust. And that's where you're going. In the end, you're just going to be dust. So to practice that, spiritual practice has everything to do with it. And in just a few minutes, I'm going to lead you to spiritual practice. And if I happen to forget this, call me back to it. Just a little brief spiritual practice that I think can help us get ready. But I'll jump ahead to later on in this conversation. Every single time we let go of our need for control, that's what death is. You will die 100,000 times before you die. every time you let go, especially of your ego. When you lay down that ego, when you say, okay, I lost the battle, I lost the election, I lost a friendship, I'm sick, I was planning on going to Antarctica tomorrow, and I slipped and broke my ribs. Those letting goes help me prepare for death more than anything. Well, I don't want to say anything, but really I mean that. Those little letting goes, and the better you get at letting go, and if you're wondering how good you are at letting go, ask your spouse if you have one, because he or she will tell you you're terrible at letting go. Your opinions, who didn't clean the house, your own physical health, this group, because we're talking about aging, you're letting go of your health all the time. I mean, I just went to a thing earlier tonight, and when I got up after sitting for an hour and a half, it's like, whoa, I have to steady myself, and then it seems to go away. I think I'm coming too close to you. That's always been my problem. That's the thing. Gotcha. Thank you. So yes, we're always preparing, and we got to track that in ourselves. So one of the things you could say at the end of the day, where did I let go today? You just help be ready to die. Where did I let go of my opinion? Where did I let go of my anger at that person who just hurt my feelings? We do 100,000 letting goes. We die 100 times before we die. So we're practicing this all the time. And I can tell you right now, if you can start to gather data that says, I went through broken ribs and I'm a better man from it, well, that's just my example, but there's a million. But seriously, it starts to build up our confidence. And then all of a sudden our trust is a 10. Next time I break another rib, I'm gonna hate it, but I know what can come out of this. There's a time of endurance, and it really sucks. But there's a time where all of a sudden I'm a different kind of guy. Maybe walking a little more steadily or less, but still, there's something changes each time. And the more data you have, so when I asked you, what was the deep physical pain of your body? Can somebody, a couple of you just shoot up your hands? I said mine, my broken ribs. Anybody else? Childbirth. I struggle with that too. No, but seriously, I don't mean I'll make that. Everybody tells me, we have contests sometimes. We call them pissing contests, but we have contests about is it harder to break a rib or to give birth to a child? Women always tell me that. And you're probably right. Please. Kidney stones. Yes. I have a priest friend who passed a kidney stone on a jet over the Atlantic Ocean. In a little chair with hours to go on each side. Yeah, you think your suffering's bad. Childbirth. No, but really, these physical pains are really remarkable, and they need to be noticed. We need to notice the limitations of our day and say something to ourselves about them, like, anything that can happen to a human being can happen to me, and I give my assent to that. Do you know the truth of that? Any bad thing that can happen to any human being can happen to you, and you can give your assent to that. Now that, if you're anything like me, that should shake you up a little bit. I mean, because a lot of you guys have kids and grandkids too, and you know what happens to some kids and grandkids. Anything that happens to any human being can happen to you. And don't tell me you think you're going to suffer less because you believe in God. Look what he did to Jesus. I mean, seriously. Yeah. So really, we need to be able to say to ourselves, we are part of the human family. That's one of the things thinking about pain and thinking about aging and thinking about death does to me, is it reminds me in no uncertain terms, I am human. I'm not a God. I am a human being. Do you know what the first sin of Adam and Eve was? I think I said this in a homily, so if you know, you get an A. The first sin of Adam and Eve was when they ate the apple, you know the story, was because they were trying not to be human. They were trying to be a god. Remember, eating the apple will make you like a god. You don't have to be human anymore. You don't have to be ignorant. Humans hurting? You don't have to be human. And they reached for that apple, and it put the whole world on tilt. And we still put our worlds on tilt when we want to be God instead of being human. Again, I ask you to look at your control issues. That's wanting to be God. A human is finite, mortal, will get sick, will die, will not understand me. So one of the things I do in marriage prep, you've heard of these Gary bombs. And I actually got fired from a marriage prep one time because of, I said, marriage is about two human beings getting married. That means you're choosing to give your life to somebody who's limited, finite, sometimes ignorant, going to say the wrong thing, going to do the wrong thing, going to get sick and die. You still want to marry him? Well, then if you say yes, then don't you dare complain about them being ignorant or not following through on their commitments or anything else that a husband or wife does. And this is true for friendships too, for us who are not married. To say that you want to marry a human being means you don't have a right to complain anymore about their humanity. Ever. And when I get put out by their sickness, I need to learn how to say to myself, I married a human being. And this is what happens to human beings. And when I'm the one that buries him or her, or she buries me, it's the same drama to the end. So when are we going to stop complaining about the humanness of our partners? See what I'm saying? Or when are we going to stop complaining just about our own sicknesses or aches and pains? I mean, you can not acknowledge those, and we need people with us in those times. They need to be aware of what hurts in our bodies as well. And yet, we have to be the ones who say anything that can happen to a human being can happen to me. And to that, I say yes. Now, I just made that sound too easy. It's not. You know that. I know some of your chronic issues. I know a lot of things you've struggled with in your bodies. And you guys have been through a lot. You have. And I'd say all of those things have made you more ready to die. We could go on with that, but I'm going to jump to pain for a second. Pain is one of your great teachers. Death is the other one. Pain teaches you. There are some things we can do for it to be minimized, obviously medication and things like that, and we should do that. And the rest we can't. We can't do certain things to fix that pain. Sometimes we just had to, it took me about 6 to 7 months to not have sharp pain every time I got out of bed or up off the toilet or bent over to put my socks on. I had community members helping me put my socks on for weeks because I couldn't do it. That's the gift of pain is we can't control it all the way. That's a gift because we gotta learn how to not be in control. Your body will humble you. Trust me, when I looked in my mirror and thought I lost hair, I was humbled. I still am humbled every time. But pain teaches us humility. It teaches us there's some things out of control in our lives. Pain reminds us that our bodies are part and parcel of who we are. Our bodies are part and parcel of who I am. Unless I want to be an angel, unless I want to be a God, pain will be a part of my human experience. I'm relieved when I don't have a bad day physically. I was talking to so many people that have colds and flus these days, and they're really locked up for a time right now. It's hard. You can resist pain, but it will only backfire until you accept it. And by backfire, it's going to explode in your face. What can happen to any human being can happen to you, as I said twice already, or at least twice. We'll never be rich enough. We will never be rich enough. We will never be holy enough. We will never be smart enough. We will never be self-actualized enough to not have physical pain along the way in our lives. And you might be in it right now. And if you're not right now, you certainly will feel when you stand up. You'll never be able to make that go away. Rich people have pains like we do. And so do smart people. And so do powerful people. And so do holy people. Look at the Pope right now. Unbelievable pain. So what do we do then when it comes, this pain? The first is to connect with Adam and Eve and learn from them. This is going to hurt way more to have broken ribs or a kidney stone passing on a plane across the Atlantic Ocean. It's going to hurt way more if I don't say yes to this. And we have another secret tool in our toolbox. It would be to say to yourself, this comes with being human. I know this is part of being human. I know I have to get out of bed now, and it's going to hurt like hell. And I'm going to get out of bed now. And it'll pass. And then the next thing we can hurt again. One of the reasons I share with you guys that I have type 2 diabetes from my family of origin all over the place, but when I recently want to share that, I told you the reason on the homily why I didn't want to share it. Because I did want you to decide not to give me donuts and ice cream if I come over for dinner. But then the price of being human is just right there. But the humanity, the pain teaches us humility and opens a place for God, even though we're only really thinking about the pain. It's trying to teach us something. Maybe to go to a doctor, as simple as that. Maybe it's that I'm not God. And I can't tell you how many times a strong personality like mine needs to remember he's not God. I mean, it sounds stupid, I probably should know this, but I need to be reminded all the time. One of our students got married to a beautiful, talented woman. The wedding was fabulous, I did it. They almost took me on the honeymoon, they were having so much fun. I did end up going on a couple of honeymoon vacations, but accidentally. That's another story. But on their honeymoon, she found a lump. And the whole rest of their marriage, she is fighting cancer. How do we get ready for stuff like that? We can. If our mind is set right, if we're thinking right, we can get ready for stuff like that. We can't make it go away. No amount of prayer in the end makes pain go away. Sometimes pain helps. Praying helps. But sometimes it doesn't. So we need to pay attention. It brings us to attention. It brings us in the moment. And here's our secret weapon. And you may not understand this or appreciate it, but I can't even tell you how much it helps me. And it helped me with those ribs too. To offer it up. I know you and I are of the age when probably we were taught when it comes to suffering, we could offer it up for people. There's something about it, you guys, and I want to put it out there for you to consider, that connects your suffering in that moment beyond yourself. Because in that moment you're thinking of yourself, mostly, and rightly so. But there's something about purposing that suffering so that somebody else might be redeemed in ways they haven't been yet. Or some place in the world might be redeemed in ways they haven't been yet. There's something about pain lightening when it's offered up. And if you don't believe me, just try it and see if it might not affect your ability to withstand that suffering. God's work is to help me see the patterns of my life. The dying, the letting go, and getting to the other side of that, which is being raised up. Raised up, there's a lot of ways to talk about that. We could talk about it as physical resurrection, but the most immediate thing I propose to you is that that pattern is your hope. That there's another side to the suffering that will be there for you. And I think it expands your consciousness, your capacity for love, and definitely what I see so sorely missing in this world, empathy. Anything we've suffered is going to help us be more empathetic. We're going to be more compassionate. If you were to ask me right now if I'm grateful for everything I've suffered, including the death of my mother, so that I could love you better when it was your turn, I am so grateful for all those things, that I could be more present to you, more empathetically present to you, more compassionately present to you, because I was there too. And I'm not going to run away if I can help it from being there when you're suffering. My personality is kind of happy and naturally. I'm a 7 on the Enneagram, if that helps. But it's harder for me sometimes to, okay, I'm really happy mood, and all of a sudden you tell me your kid has cancer. That's a huge to be with you in that. But it's nothing I've never not been able to do, because I've been there. Not my kid, but my friend. Not whoever, but somebody else. I mean, seriously, the empathetic response, the capacity for empathy. I really think the world is in trouble when leaders, people can't feel empathy, don't know how to have empathetic responses to anything. And in your family, you are leaders. So your ability to be empathetic because of what you suffer is remarkable. And really, the bottom line is that's what life is about for us Catholic Christians. That's what life is about. It's aiming towards connection. Connection opens up because we've suffered, and so is she or he now. And that empathetic response, not this vague, oh, I'm sorry, and I'll say a prayer for you. But I mean, you really get it. You get it in your bones. Because you were there. Maybe a 2 out of 10, but you were there once or 100 times. And the last thing I wanted to say about pain is, can we find it in ourselves in the midst of pain to take a breath and be grateful? Whatever the limitation is, in our minds or our bodies, can we find a tiny bitty little tiny flower in the mountains of gratitude? That's the section on pain. What do you want to say in response? I don't need people to agree with me. I'd rather you disagree with me or question something I said or the way I said it. But is there anybody that needs to say anything about that? Or wants to say anything about pain? Please.
Gratitude for your pain. I don't get it.
It's not gratitude for the pain itself, because I hate pain. I hate pain, but your question is really worthy. Gratitude that, here we go, we're back to that trust word, that somehow something is happening inside of this pain that I know is going to be good for me and help me to be more loving. Once I get to that, I can find gratitude even when it hurts. That's that little tiny wildflower of gratitude in the midst of all that. I don't know if I'm explaining it well. Some of you have lost your kids and your spouses already, way too many of you, in many ways. And when Jesus said, blessed are you who mourn, blessed are you who grieve, he went through all these things, and really the bottom line of all those is, blessed are you when you're letting go. Well, when I'm letting go of my health, there's a blessing in that. My trust. I hate the word faith because people check off doctrines. Oh yes, I have faith in the triune God, I have faith in homoousia, and I have faith in all these things, and they think they're good Catholics. The nitty-gritty of life, of my willingness to suffer for love, is the test of faith, the faith of Jesus. And it's that says I'm walking in him, with him, and through him, and for him. It's my response in love, it's my response in empathy and compassion that leads to action. I'd hardly ever know that it doesn't. If it's true empathy, it's going to make me want to go to the bedside. The last place I want to go when somebody's on their last leg is go to their bedside. In the old days, I would have said I'd rather be playing handball. I would. But this is good for me. This is growing the part of me that needs to grow if I'm going to die a happy death. And yes, my friends, there is such a thing as a happy death. And we can talk about that later. What would it mean to be happy? And I'm sure one of them would be being with family, for sure. Please.
Could you talk a little bit more about offering up pain? From the time I was probably a first grader, I thought, offered up for what, to what? Is there another part to that?
That's a good question. What does it mean to offer it up? And you guys might have your own experience of this. What I would say to myself at the end of the day is all the suffering I had today. So do you guys know the 2 questions I take into sleep every night? I might have said them at some point along the way. My examen, my form of the examen is, the first one is, where did it hurt to be Gary today? And there's always an answer. It might be a little pinprick, it might be a sword. Where did it hurt to be Gary? And the second question is, where did I experience love today? Thank you. Where did I experience love today? Those are the 2 questions I ask myself every night, and it's the second one that takes me into sleep. And I fall asleep so quickly. I need to do a webpage like this. Because it's better than all those medications and all those sleep apps that I've used them all. But there's just so much there that needs to be acknowledged. So when I offer it up for somebody, where did it hurt to be Gary? And right now, mostly I'm talking about hurting in our body because of the aging issue. But wherever it hurts, to say, to go back to the dramatic example of ribs, my ribs are hurting a lot. I'm scared to wake up tomorrow and have to get out or get in the middle of the night and go pee, which makes it even harder. You gotta pee twice a night with both ribs. But I do have one of those beds that goes up and throws me out. Yeah! Woo! That is a gift. One of you gave me. I'll never forget you for that. So I want to take that pain and say, I'm offering this far, and then I think of somebody and their suffering, and I connect it to them, and suffering is redemptive. And so to pass that over to them, to help them enjoy some of the redemption of that if they can't say yes to it right now, I can for them. I hope this doesn't sound too ethereal or mystical, but I just ask you to try it. It makes it a teeny bit lighter, a teeny bit easier. When I'm doing something, when I'm hurting, doing something for somebody who needs it, that redemption more than I do right now, maybe. And if that doesn't register for you, don't feel this is not a fundamental teaching of a church. It's probably what I would call a practice, spiritual practice. But all I can say is from my experience, try it, you'll like it. It's really something to do. Please.
I just want to make a comment about feeling really intense pain. I had back surgery, spinal fusion, and that was really rough. But in a way, it was a gift because it gave me a confidence. You know, I feel like if I can get through this, I can get through anything. You know, and I mean, it just feels differently about myself. And after that surgery, I had another pretty major diagnosis that I just took it stride. You know, because I did it before, you know, and I can do it again.
Thank you for sharing that. Seriously, that's huge. That's why I want you guys to track these things you've come out of. So you have a strong sense, it's going to help you when you need it, a strong sense that you have what it takes. That you and God are this magic formula that will help you get to the other side. It's going to hurt. God's probably not going to rush my ribs healing or even your back. But when we can hold it lighter, who knows what's released in our bodies that make that limitation pass sooner a little bit. You know what I'm saying? We're mustering some of the best parts of our body when our attitude is like that. And I'm glad you said that. I wrote it down because I think that needs to be said. Thank you so much. We have more confidence. After burying my mother at the age of 37, I have more confidence right now that I can face the worst deaths because of that was the worst death, and I never could imagine surviving it on the other side. And I did. And I'm a better priest and a better man for having buried my mother. So that sort of confidence is remarkable. Put that in your memory banks, you guys. Next time it hurts like crazy, just remember that. I think when even flying, I know so many people afraid of flying. If they remember that no matter what happens, there's another side to it that's going to make me better. There's a seed of something in there. And we haven't even talked about hope yet. Somebody else? Yeah, please.
Well, this kind of follows up on that.
Oh, I thought I was probably the one behind. I didn't see your hand. Sorry, go ahead.
The men in the room may disagree with the women who said, talking about childbirth.
No, we're not disagreeing because we don't know.
Well, just take a word for it.
Take our word for it.
But here's the thing. This is the one thing that we already know that it's worth it. It still hurts like hell,
Yes.
but it's worth it. We know we're going to get through it, and we know it's worth it. And a lot of the other pains that we experience, we don't have that confidence about. And if we could give that confidence to the other pains that we have, it would be worth it.
So what makes it worth it to a woman who's gripping the rails or her husband's hand to the point of it's hurting his fingers? What makes it worth it to her?
Baby!
Sorry, I got the male perspective though.
Baby!
The baby! New life! That's exactly what Jesus said. There's new life going to come on the other side of that broken rib, on the other side of that birth pain. On the other side of all this, something new is going to happen. I don't know what it's going to look like, but the promise is that buried in that beatitude, blessed are you who are mourning, somehow in your grief, there's going to be this little tiny, tiny flower beginning to blossom. There's a blessing. That's what the whole beatitude means. There's a blessing. Is this still working? Did it come up?
Nobody paid for an hour.
That's a reminder. Julie, the badge, she's got the badge. Oh, it's red. Thank you. Jim, I know that. There you go. Is this working?
Talk into it, Jerry.
Lights on. Testing. There it is. Oh, it's flashing red and green. Both batteries are dead. Maybe. So this is suffering. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Offer it up.
Offer it up. So, yes. Who was just talking? Yeah, thank you. Lou, did you have something?
Well, you were talking about, a lot of physical pain, and you know me, and so well. And when I was a little kid, I had obsessive compulsive disorder since I was like 8 years old. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, just louder.
And so, as a little kid, I prayed for physical pain. Because the mental pain of obsessive compulsive disorder as a little kid, washing your hands, worrying about your family's health, always being feeling guilty if somebody got sick and you thought you were at fault. There's a lot of mental pain that has been, I guess, my little thing, my big thing over the years. But I used to pray that if I went to heaven, I wouldn't have it anymore.
Have any more of the OCD stuff?
Yeah, I was just afraid to die almost because I didn't want to have that mental pain anymore.
Yeah, totally.
But by sticking through it, whether it be like the horrible, I haven't had some of the physical pain that many people have had.
But you're saying the physical pain, you almost prayed for it because it would distract you from the emotional?
Well, no, because I was praying that somebody would take care of me. That I was heard, that I would be heard, that people would take care of me
Yes.
as a little kid.
Because for a long time,
It was
nobody understood what you're going through, the hell you were going through.
It was pretty interesting.
But God has helped me, and Father Gary, you've been an amazing person in my life through this journey. And I think that God is really great.
And by the way, Lou has offered her experience with OCD, which was debilitating sometimes, for others who might know somebody who goes through OCD stuff. That's the ultimate redemption, is to everything you suffered, which I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, but yet now you're capable of compassion and even guiding people through that to wholeness. I mean, that's the whole thing.
I mean, that's where I got it, I think. He must have said, we're giving you this, so maybe you can help somebody.
God does not do that. Let me be clear. If God gave people OCD so they could help another person, I'd have a hard time with God. Nature does it that way. Nature does it that way. But some people are born with OCD, some people are not. And
I think you're putting batteries in it out there.
I think it's God grumbling at me right now.
But I don't like sharing my story because.
Yes, that's why you're turning it into a gift. That's amazing.
Like there's a heaven.
We get it. Thanks, Luke. Thank you. By the way, she's my barber. Every once in a while when we start talking, she gets a little carried away. The guys go, what happened, Father Gary? Okay, I'm going to go to, thank you guys for sharing some of those pains and what they're about. Yours are there. You have pain. You've suffered enormous pain. If you're anywhere near my age, you did not get to this age without some tremendous effort, awful physical pains along the way. And that brings us to aging, and this is going to be the shortest part, but I do want to hear what your questions are. Do you have any questions about aging? Anybody have anything they want to ask about aging?
Yeah. I have
Please,
a question.
please.
We have a lot of friends who are aging and going through dementia, Alzheimer's, and the pain is huge. And then you worry about yourself. Will I go down that road? And how you talked about control, and when I think about dementia and Alzheimer's, control I don't have anymore. And so that worry is big in my mind, is how we age with that, how we do with myself or with my loved ones, friends.
Is it okay to be afraid of dementia? Absolutely, we're all afraid of it. Is it ever okay for that fear to make you frozen and so afraid you don't want to wake up in the morning or you don't want to go to the doctor? Oh yeah, I threw that last one in, I see more guilt. We don't want to even hear the bad news. And we just have to be able to take on the bad news. Jesus got some bad news that day before Pilate. He did. And we know where it got him. I mean, it really is, that would be the end of so much no control left. Anxiousness that leads the kindest person to violence. It's beyond words, the suffering that is and will be. And so much of that needs to be looked at by the church. One of the things the church is talking about now is, does the spouse of somebody who's got chronic dementia have any freedom to, who was that female? Sandra Day O'Connor. Her husband had it really bad, and every time she went to visit him, she saw him holding hands to somebody else in the hospital with him. That story was so touching. And there's a lot that needs to be explored about how to carry on a marriage when the person's not copacetic, I guess you could say. What I want to propose to you is that ego is really a problem. It's good and it's bad. Our ego's got us to be everything we are. As Richard Gore talks about it a lot, he says we build our towers the first half of life. We're more ego-driven. Those students across the street are ego-driven. They want to succeed, they want to make money, they want to find a partner. They're very ego-driven. But at some point, and usually it's about the midway point, according to Carl Jung, who's my hero, according to Carl Jung, we have to at some point start dissembling that tower. We have to start taking it down We don't need it anymore. And the second half of life is all about disassembling the tower. It's about taking it out brick by brick and learning how to disappear. And if you guys were around the last 3 years for me, after being here for 31 years, I guess at that point in time, 30, and being sort of the center of so much as the only priest, it just became so clear to me that I had to do what I don't want to do. I have to disappear. I have to start disassembling that tower. I have to start taking it apart. I have to find out who I am when I'm not the boss at the CSC anymore, or the one driving the mission as the pastor sort of person. So who am I now that I'm not in charge? I had to take that apart. And I'm still in the process of taking that apart. And it's sometimes very troubling to me. People say, how are you doing with retirement? It's sometimes really hard. But it's also, I have the clearest I could ever be about I needed to disappear for the CSC to become everything it can be. Really, I mean that sincerely. It was the most loving thing I knew how to do. And it was not like most loving things. It was not without pain. But it's because I love you that I knew I had to start dismantling this, disappearing, decomposing. Do you hear what we're talking about all the time?
Okay.
Decomposing. I had to take myself apart in the role I was in for 33 years, but even as a priest for 47 years. And find out what it means to be a priest now without leadership like that. I can talk about it for a long time, but we have to get to that. The second half of life has got to be about taking things forward. And you guys whose kids are away from home, you know that. You identified as a mom or a dad for a long time to those kids. And now they live in another city, they're exploring other relationships. You're trying to adjust to an in-law for the first time ever. Oh my gosh, that's so hard. You guys have disassembled your parental tower way longer than I've done this. And you don't even know how much I admire how good you were. Not perfect, but how good you've been at doing this. You just had the whole purpose of your life right in front of you, and now he or she is not there anymore. They're in Las Vegas, dancing on stages.
All your kids don't leave at once. And you can adjust to it a little.
You can't adjust if you're willing to. That's a choice to adjust. You can complain, you can keep trying to control your son. I don't know if you have a son. You can keep trying to control their spouses so you get what you need and they're home for Christmas at your house, not hers. This is some of the stuff I hear talked about all the time. Who are they going to go to for Christmas and Easter? Well, I want to go to mine. I've always done it this way, of course. Do you see what I'm saying? The letting go is a choice. The letting go of having the kids around the way you wanted them to be around. You know it. Every graduation for me was excruciating. Because I did my best to pour my whole mind, heart, soul, and body into that class. Those kids, they confided in me, they let me make a difference, they had an impact on me, they taught me a lot. And then come graduation, they're gone. And I had the empty nest every May, and I always said to myself, going back 33 years, if I ever quit this job, this way of being a priest, it's because I can't say one more goodbye. It hurt every time. But I gotta say, and now I have the data to give me confidence, as you said, that I can do, I feel confident right now, maybe I'm more cocky, but it won't be easy. I don't even want to pretend that it's easy. It's gonna really hurt, but when it comes time to die. But in the end, I think I have the confidence that I've always seen what it turns into. And that's what I meant when I said Jesus is showing us this pattern of life, of human life, that it's dying and rising, dying and rising. You let go of something so that there's an opening to something else. I mean, how many men and women have I met who declared bankruptcy? Some of our students have declared it 3 times. And every time they got stripped and shredded, their ego was in a mess on the floor, and then they pulled it out of the bag, even after 3 times. And now they're succeeding. But they had to fail first. I mean, a failure is a whole nother way of talking about this. Do you see how these things are built into human nature? This is what it means to be human. Dying and rising, and dying and rising, and dying and rising again. And aging, I'm going to propose to you, is finishing the deal. It's delivering the product. Aging has helped you finish the deal of your life, who you are. Aging is getting you through that towards the end and delivering the product. For the future of the world, for your own future, however you want to look at it. The delivering the product, signed, sealed, and delivered. You gotta go. That's right, you have got to go. Did you hear that? You have to die. And so does everybody you love. Do you know what this planet would be like if nobody died? I Googled that question today to my little, what do they call that little guy that tells me all the answers? AI, no, not AI. Anyway, this is my brain right now too. 106 billion human beings would be on this planet if nobody died. That's what it's at, 106 billion. 106 billion people. Well, that'd be really crowded. You need to go. And when it's your time to say yes, it's time for me to go, so that I, this is a loving thing, I can make space for the future, for the next generation, so that I, the generation coming up from the beginning, doesn't have to compete for airspace with me. We don't all live in high rises like New York City. Can you tell I don't like New York City? But I'm serious as a heart attack. I mean, seriously, we got to go. It's for the good of the world. And when you frame it as a loving thing to be willing to die, the powers of redemption are at work already. I got to go. So I ask you the same question I ended the last one with about pain. In your complaining and in your moaning about aging, can you find a little bit of gratitude for the chance to age? I mean, how many people never live long enough to get arthritis? Any feedback, any thoughts, any, I don't want to leave you ever hanging on anything. In the next chapter, we're not going to get very far. It's death, please.
So, how do you deal with the daily grief? Not the big grief, not the loss of a parent or a spouse or a child, but the loss of yourself. Because we all feel that every day, or monthly or weekly or whatever time frame you're looking at. The loss of your mobility, the loss of the ability to live on your own, the loss to drive a car, the admitting that it's time to retire. I grieve those things. And that's really hard for me to get through.
Except there's a promise that maybe is something you can hang on to. Blessed are you who are grieving. There's a blessing in this you might not feel, you might not see, but can you trust? There's that word again. It is everything faith needs to learn how to trust. And some of us had ruptures in our childhood, which makes trust really, really hard. But Jesus you can trust. And he says, there's a blessing in your letting go. I promise you. And then keep going. And I just have to believe in the gospel enough to say I've never not found that in the end. But sometimes it took way long. And way more suffering than I wanted, and way more goodbyes than I ever dreamed I'd have to say. But blessed are you when you're letting go. I know you're sad. Jesus could say, I know what your heart is breaking. I know that. The most he could say is, I have compassion on it because I was there too. I get it. And I'm telling you, from his mouth to our ears, I tell you, you can trust this. There's gold after this pan is shaken up and the dirt falls through. There's gold left. Gold. And I hope you have the data in your life already to know that. That you can say, yes, that's happened, to help build up our confidence that there will be gold. And the shaking is never fun at all. It's just not fun. But there is that gold at the end. Okay, are you okay jumping into death real quick? Yeah. Jumping into death. I did a funeral Friday for Siobhan's mom, who was a wonderful 90-year-old lady. And I was so inspired by her devotion to the rosary. It's not something I necessarily grab hold of every time I'm in distress or anything, but her practice seemed to really work for her in a million ways. And what I realized is she said, what did I say, how many years did she say? 1 million. I added up, rosary a day leads to over 1.7 million. I think it was 1.7 million Hail Marys. And every Hail Mary ends with, Holy Mary, Mother of God. Now. And at the hour of death. Those are the two most important words in the English language. Now, everything's here. My most spiritual word is this. No, I don't dare run to sleep anybody else to need to know all the love in the universe. It's right here wherever I am. Now. The love I need is here now. In this, wherever this is, with whomever this is happening. Now. And this is what builds that confidence. I'm stuck on your word. Builds that confidence and in the hour of my death. Now and at the hour of death. That prayer says it all in a clear-cut way, I think. There's a poem I want to read to you real quickly. It's from, you've probably heard of her, Mary Oliver. Oh, yeah. She's a favorite of many of us. And it's called In Blackwater Woods. I'm going to jump from that real quick. Old age. It's creeping up on me. Almost every day. You know who one of my best teachers about all this stuff about aging and death is? It's the woods in Forest Park. It's the trees. Forest Park has 67,000 trees. And every one of them is preaching to me all the time. All the time. And every one of them is saying, I'm here for a time. I do my work. And when it comes to death, the last gift I will give is everything I am to the little ones coming up next to my tree, the little twigs now that are turning into trees. And if my feet are planted firmly in trust, if I am working on being more trusting in life, of life, my feet are planted firmly, I can grow strong and tall, but there's going to be a lot of things pushing and pulling at me. Some of those make me stronger as a tree. Some of them make me stronger as a man, as a human. And then sometimes little things get in those trees, and sometimes those make them even stronger. And you could tell when the drought was there, and you see these twigs every once in a while, and all of a sudden I walked in the woods about 4 or 5 days ago, well no, last week, and there was this huge tree I loved looking at, and it was totally toppled. But even that death of that tree is creating places for animals and things to hide in, and these little critters that keep the ground moist so little nutrients can grow. I mean, they're dissolving right in front of my eyes, and it's all because of these bugs that are making life happen. And so the tree gives itself in the very end to the forest. What, remember that book? Didn't that say it the best? What was the name of it again? Giving Tree. So giving, that's the meaning of life. And if we can turn even our death into a gift, we've given the best gift we could give. The best gift we can ever give is the gift of our death. I said several different ways that can happen. But even the decomposing of our body can be a gift back to the earth and to the future. And even the decomposing of my body, the caving in of everything into nothingness of my flesh, can open up a space on this incredible planet for somebody else to take my place and more people to take my place. It's just amazing. And here's a Mary Oliver. Look, she says, look, the trees returning their own bodies into pillars of light, are giving off the rich fragrance of sentiment and fulfillment. The long tapers of cattails are bursting and floating away over the blue shoulders of the ponds. And every pond, no matter what its name is nameless now. Every year, everything I've ever learned in my lifetime leads back to this. All those fires in the Black River of loss, all who is other side salvation, whose meaning none of us will ever know. And then she concludes with these words. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things. To love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your whole life depends on it. And when the time comes to let go, to let go. I can't think of a poem that summarizes the whole gospel of Jesus of Nazareth better than that. Death is a great teacher. It's the best teacher. The woods, those woods at Forest Park, 47,000 trees. They talk to me almost every day about it all. Yes, there is such a thing as a happy death. But we have to be getting ready for it all the time by how I embrace my little dying today for the big one in the end. And if you notice panic coming up in you, just imagine a tree and maybe even go look at one. Put your feet firmly in the ground. Let your roots be deep in love, in the infinite love that is God. The mystery we call God is love. And if our roots are in love, the sap is going to be hope and everything we need to flourish and everything we need to be able to shade and to be stirred with life, with wind and rain, snow and ice. These trees right now are in winter, but they're beautiful. And so are you in the winters of your life. You're beautiful. When you feel like you even have the least to give, you're still working so that that gift can be given in the end. The trees are your teachers. They will normalize your suffering. I think I told you when my mom died, in those days we had a day off. And every Thursday I would go to Queenie Park. I was in O'Fallon. Well, I was in O'Fallon the first years. She died when I was in Our Lady of Sorrows in South St. Louis. But I still went out to that park. And I sat next to a pond in the far parts of the park where there's not as many people in the buildings. And I just was trying to be present to the rhythms of nature. And they became my best teacher. And they normalized it. Is that the word? They said this is what's supposed to happen here. It all belongs. It all belongs, without exception. It all belongs. We have about 4 minutes. Does anybody want to ask anything? Or feel like you have to? Please.
Something I want to say about death and heaven is, over the last 15 years, I've been to 2 Baptist funerals in the African American tradition. And in that faith tradition, it's really a celebration of the coming home of Jesus. And there's singing, and there's dancing, and there's high-fiving, and it's a whole different type of funeral experience. And it really has touched me to to think of death in that way instead of a homecoming, the celebration of coming home. And it's just a different way of, it's just interesting way to speak to that.
I'll tell you what, if you guys want me back someday to talk about heaven, hell, and purgatory, that's a whole other topic. It really is, but I was hoping we'd get to it tonight, but I hope we covered the right stuff. But I do think there's inclinations in life that will make it easier to believe in heaven. I do want to say some of the notions of heaven that I hear Catholics reflect on are naive, and I think they're wishful thinking. That's your Gary Bob. Stay tuned. There's a lot to be said about hell and purgatory, but I don't think it's fair for you guys to stay longer. Yeah, seriously, I'd be really honored to, anytime you guys want to explore more deeply these kinds of things. There's stuff in our life that makes it easier to trust that there's a heaven, but it might not be what you think it is. To be continued. Thank you to the CSC for hosting us